Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I'm excited today. I have the opportunity to work on a reel I have not worked on in a very long time. This is a Shakespeare Tidewater 30L fishing reel. I think this one of the reels was way ahead of its time. And interestingly enough, the modern day Okuma reels follow the industrial design of this reel. Well, Wayne sent it in, and he had asked me to tune it up. It's got a little bit of dirt and debris on it. Seems to be running okay, but it's time for a service. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to tune this reel up. We'll show you how to take it apart, how it was made, how to service it, how to keep it fishing for a long time to come. Well, if you like these kinds of videos, I want to encourage you to subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can learn a lot by watching the videos. You can learn a lot about the fishing industry, fishing reel manufacturers, how to service fishing reels, how fishing reels are used, and well, every now and then some fishing trivia and the like. When I take my pieces and parts off, which is what I've started doing, I like to put them into a parts tray. That's a convenient place for me to know where they're going to be when it's time to go ahead and put them back together again. You know, these reels, they had plating on it, metal plated spools and graphite side plates. They were generationally ahead of their time. This one was made in Taiwan. Interestingly enough, that's where the Okuma reels are made. And well, maybe that's where the association is. It could be that they were made by a contract manufacturer. That wouldn't be unusual at all for Shakespeare. Shakespeare used a lot of Asian manufacturers for a variety of their reels. I think a lot of the reels today are made in China, but I'm not sure if they're under the control of the pure fishing factories there, or if they're still going to jobbers for their reels. But at any rate, the Shakespeare reels made in Taiwan quite possibly could have used the same ones that eventually started making the Okuma convectors and the like. Well, we've removed the star adjuster. This is a plastic or a graphite star adjuster. This is one of the weak points of the reel. These tabs tend to break off of this reel. This is a good place to tell you to take pictures of the reel when you're servicing it because, well, unless you're watching my video, you're probably not going to see many places where you can find the information on the reel due to the age of it, and trying to find schematics in that are tough. We have a ball bearing up top. We have a bushing underneath. It's separated by a small washer, so take the pictures there. And there's 4 or 5 of these case screws that need to be removed in order to get that side plate off. It's one of these universal type screws. I think they call them Japanese industrial screws, JIDs or something like that. I actually have one of those screwdrivers. It's never in my hand when it should be, right? All right, but I like to use the Phillips head screwdriver as soon as I can break the bond on them. And if you're having trouble with this, maybe you find that the screws are stuck or torqued down a lot, just spray it with some penetrating oil on both sides of the case here and on the inside before you start trying to remove them. And you're going to notice on this reel that there's 2 different types of screws, so pay attention to that when you're taking this out. You're going to find that there are screws that have the fine thread, like this one. They go into the cross posts. And you have the rough thread, I believe. Yep. They go where the cross posts aren't. You have 2 of those. I think you have 1 more up top underneath that release arm as well. So I really like these. These were a well-priced product at the time. Oh, they're a longer thread. I knew there was something different about them. There's a longer thread. Okay. Well-priced product, well-made. So what's the problem with them today? Parts availability. And it's almost always one of 2 things that cause this reel to wind up in a landfill. The first one is that you have an issue with the line guide pawl right here, or you have a broken idler gear which drives the line guide's worm gear, and you just simply cannot get them any longer. See if we can tap that pawl out. Nope, we'll get it later. So I've removed the pawl cap. The pawl is in there. We'll get that in a moment. So we've taken off the 5 screws here. We can pull out the side plate and give you a look at what's going on in the side plate. Take out our spool. This has got a bushing back here, not a bearing. Just want to make sure that it's all cleaned up under here. If you like, you can take the side plate off if you find it's particularly dirty. This one looks like it's in fine shape. There's just a little bit of old grease on the inside. I'm going to take a moment here to clean that up. You can see how it's accumulated on the spool ring and the like. And while I'm doing that, I want to encourage you to ask questions. Maybe you want to know a little bit more about the histories of reels. Maybe you're working on a reel and you're stuck. Whatever your question may be, just leave that question in the comments section. I will try to answer those questions for you. There's a little bit of dirt and debris on the rims. It's a good time to clean it while you have the spool out. I'm just going to use a little bit of rod and reel cleaner on a kitchen scrubby. This is not the Scotch-Brites. They're a little too aggressive. This is a dollar store scrubby, but where it might not be the best thing in the kitchenware section, it's probably the best thing in terms of just a light enough abrasive to knock off the film without scratching it or scraping it up. Okay, put that off to the side. And here's the look at the engineering behind this. This always gets interesting on this reel. People take it apart and can't understand how to get the anti-reverse dog back in place. So we'll show you that in addition to how to service the reel. First thing I think we're going to need to do is put the handle back on for a moment. We're going to use that as a wrench to hold that shaft while we remove the back end screw here. Take a picture. It becomes very important at this point to take the picture if you're not aware of what it is that you're doing. You have a screw and you have a metal bushing here, and this is fun because it's, well, this one seems to be round. A lot of the times that bushing is not round, it's rectangular. Then you have your main gear on the other side of this. We're going to continue by taking the 3 bridge screws off now. I'm still using the handle to hold down this assembly. All 3 of these screws should be the same. Don't be surprised if you're working on one of these reels and one of the screws is bigger. They had several variations on this over time, and that was one of them where the back plate screws got a little different there. All right, that's the base plate that faces forward. Notice it is offset. When you go to reinstall, it needs to face forward. That's a bushing there. Here's your inside look at this. The pinion gear is down. This is always fun in terms of reloading this. Notice where your anti-reverse dog is. That anti-reverse dog is held in by a little stud here. So I'm going to pull that out right there. Again, pictures are so important in this reel. If you're not familiar with the reel, you need to remember that that little stud is going to go in this hole here. You need to remove the small screw to remove the jack. And notice that you have a long arm on this one and a stud here. When these are engaged, it's going to automatically trip back your free spool level. All right, bring that out. And what we're doing here is what you do on most reels. You want to inspect the pieces and parts. You want to clean them, re-lubricate them, and then put it back together again and send it out to go do its job. All right, that's your anti-reverse jack. There's some dirt on the back. We'll clean that up. This is your yoke and pinion gear. Picture time, always picture time. Unless you're doing a video like this and or you have a high degree of confidence, always picture time. Sometimes this spring will pop out. Notice that there's a little pinhole in the case that holds that. And underneath your eccentric, there's the hole to accept the other side of this spring. Speaking of springs, I like to get rid of these two in a hurry. They go into my parts tray so that I don't lose them. And now we can bring the main gear assembly out. We've been holding it on with the handle. This whole piece should come out now. And we can clean our case now that all of the pieces are out of there. That's the light squirt of the penetrating oil. We'll take care of that. And it's doing what it should do. We have a nice set of the yoke and the jack. I'm not sure what this is made out of, but I've never seen them rust. I'm not sure. I don't think it's stainless. My guess is maybe it's aluminum. I'm not sure. When you take your pinion gear out, you want to check your pinion gear. Make sure that it is clean, that there's nothing clogging the tracks. If you see any evidence of dirt, come on back, clean it out. I'm using a brush to do that. Inspect all your teeth. Make sure that they're not chipped or misaligned. Let's move those over to the side for a moment. And then this one also is one of these where every now and then you get this thing put on upside down or backwards. So note the front of this. We took the bearing off already. Now we have a bearing shield washer and a bushing. We have two tension washers. We have a big washer. And then the drag washers are on the other side of this. Now, I've been in a couple of these reels where the drag washers were forward, and the only thing I could say is whoever had the reel probably installed this backwards. That's okay. It's pretty much the same thing, but just be aware of that. So we have one shim washer between the the free spool trip ratchet. We have the back piece here. These are hard washers. They don't need to be lubricated. They do need to be checked to make sure that they're clean. Okay, let's build the stack up here. This is kind of fun because it you have to have a reverse thought of it because it's going in with the drag stack facing the back end of this. First hard washer is in, and we have kind of an interesting one because you have two eared washers. So cover it with an eared washer, the red hard washer, second eared washer, second red washer, and then all of this goes in to your keyed washer up above. So that's the way that the back end of the stack goes. On the front end of the stack facing the handle, we have a keyed washer. Now keyed washers, when you tamp down on your drag, they're holding the shaft. The eared washers, when you tamp down with that slot, they're holding the main gear. When it's loose, they aren't clamped together. As you tighten your drag up, they form a bond, and that's how you get your hard drag. Okay, second of your keyed washers follows the drag washer on that side. We have the bellied washers. I put the outer rim facing up on the first, down on the second. Then we have our bushing. Then we have the bearing shield for the outer bearing. Now what I like to do on this reel is I like to tie that one off before we go too much further. Okay, once we've assembled our main gear, let's turn our attention to putting the rest of the reel together. I want to take those two springs, put the springs over the posts here. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to install this assembly. You can see that this assembly moves, just like what happened there. If we don't tie this assembly down early, when you go to put that anti-reverse dog on, sometimes that main gear moves up on this shaft. The anti-reverse dog falls behind the ratchet, and well, it just becomes quite a wrestling match. So what I like to do right now is put this in, bring that over, bring the bearing in, and then put our star adjuster on to hold that assembly in place. And whether they did that in the shop or not, I don't know. when they were manufacturing it. I've just learned that that's about the only way that I can effectively do it. And hold this tight so that when you go to put that anti-reverse dog on, it doesn't trip up. Next piece then is to put some grease onto your yoke. Same thing with the pinion gear. Put the pinion gear on. Nice fresh coat of grease. Pinion gear goes over those springs once we've attached the other piece. On the pinion gear, the slot faces out. Once you have it centered, push it down. And we can bring the jack in, seat it over that stud, and grab our little screw here, which I always have trouble with. Get that started. And now we have the internal working there. And you can see there's still a lot of movement in this main gear. So next up is to put the anti-reverse dog in place. There is a spring with the anti-reverse dog right there. That's always a wrestling match for me as well. That's going to go over the top here. But right now, what I need to do is get that hole for the anti-reverse dog lined up. And then bring this stud carrier that we talked about earlier over and in. And then holding that assembly, I'll use a pick or a pin or something, grabbing the loop of the spring, bring it over that post, and that will be the tension for your anti-reverse dog spring. This is where you need to be careful. See how that fell off there? So you need to hold a certain level of tension with that star adjuster to keep that in place as you go to move your bridge, which is the next piece on. You need to make sure that you line up the 3 screw holes. This hole here is the hole where that little slot is going to come through. Bring that on, make sure it snaps in tightly. And then get one of those screws. I like to put the screw that's going to hold your anti-reverse down. Get that started. If you drop the things, just be patient. Then we can bring the other 2 screws in. So you've seen in this reel, the components are nice components. It's a well-made reel. It's a rather simple design, which is nice. And as I mentioned, there's some connection here. This reel being made in Taiwan and the Okuma convectors being made in Taiwan, or the classics. I'm not sure which one it is, but I was shocked when the first time around I opened it up, the Okuma, and said, hey, that's not an Okuma, that's a Shakespeare Tidewater. Alright, put the second one in, one more. And again, on some of these reels you may find that you have a different screw, a bigger, shorter, fatter, thinner head. That's just the way that some of these showed up. Alright, that's in place now. This is got a collar on it. Some of them you're going to find are D-shaped on these reels. This one is not. And then we have our tie down screw for that. And that is the internal workings of this reel. Just make sure everything's tightened down nicely. We'll make sure it all trips. You can see how your anti-reverse dog is clicking away. Everything's going the way it should. Bring your free spool release down, and again that will trip. And fire back up once that drag is tight. Okay, we're in good shape with that. Let's turn our attention to the pawl. You want to make sure that the pawl is clean. This one's got some dirt on its carriers. So I'm going to just take a screwdriver and clean all of that off. That dirt will slow the progress of your line guide assembly when it's trying to travel through the tracks on your worm gear. Also check your points, make sure that that is good. As I mentioned, this is one of 2 failure points in this reel that unfortunately you just can't do anything about. A little spot of oil onto there before we push it into the case. And then move your idler gear so that you can set that flat. With that set, let's go back and put the pawl cap on. And I oil worm gears, I don't grease them. The reason for that is dirt accumulates in these, and if you're not careful, the dirt will adhere to greases, get trapped, and then cause either a failure of that or a slowdown of the performance of that because the pawl can't travel over the grease. Just remove that last little bit of line there. Looking for my little kitchen scrubby. Not seeing that here at the moment. I'm sure it'll resurrect itself at some point. There it is. Just clean the spool while that's out. A little bit of grease onto the spool shaft on both sides. We can set this up for reassembly. Spool goes in. While we're at it, we'll clean that case off there. I'm using pen, rod, and reel cleaner for the cleaning on this. It just takes the normal film and buildup that happens with fishing reels, gets them straightened up. Okay, bring your shaft in. Set your side plate. Remember that the cross posts have the shorter screws. So let's put those in first. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, maybe you're stuck on something. Maybe I haven't told you about asking the questions. Maybe I have. It's been a long video. I'll apologize if I've already mentioned that. But if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I do try to answer the questions. Usually they're answered the next day, so this isn't a 24/7 helpline here, but before I start my day in the shop, I generally try to answer the questions in the comment section. And if you have a question, leave it there. I'll try to help you out or get you more information. Maybe you just want to know a little bit more about the reel, how it was used, when it was used, and so on. This is a great reel. A lot of folks like this reel for catfishing. It's got that level line guide on it. It was a strong performer. It certainly could hold its weight, and well, it was a pretty substantial line guide as well. So a lot of folks like that for catfishing. Of course, it was used in ocean fishing. And, it could be used for trolling, or it could be used for drop fishing. And it stood its test. As I mentioned, for the price, it was an excellent performer. And that design, well, design is still alive today in the Okuma product. All right, the longer screws go where those crossbars are not. got one more of those. We'll put the handle on. We'll give it a final test here. Alright. We have the tension washer that goes between your star adjuster and the handle. The handle goes on. Our handle nut goes on. Be careful when you're putting these on. Make sure that they go on square. If you find that they're going in at an angle, stop. You'll strip the post. And then try to get the point to point right at that hole there. And generally, if you can do that, when you put your retention clip on there, it's going to line up as this one did. One more piece. My parts tray is empty. So I'm reasonably assured that I've put them all on. I'm reasonably certain, based on having worked on this reel before, I put them all in the right place. Okay, tighten down the retention screw, tighten down the drag washer. Time for a final test. What did we do? We took this reel apart completely. We explained to you the mechanics behind it. It is a little bit different than some of the other reels that you'll find in that category or the class. It's a nice reel. It's got good components. It's got a good design to it. A design that continues to this day. And well, we showed you how to overcome that drag washer setup. Also showed you how to set that anti-reverse dog, which can drive you crazy if you haven't worked on a reel like this before. And well, it's time for a test. Let's see how we did. Oh, we've got our click on, that's for sure. Nice, free, easy. Look at this. I love this reel in terms of put a little bit of grease, a little bit of oil, clean it up, and this is what you get, right? Drags are holding nice and tight. You can back those off now. Make sure that your trip lever, nice free spinning free spool. And you can flip this back by your hand if you like, or you can use your handle to click it back. Either way, it will engage it. So that's it. That's how to service the Shakespeare Tidewater 30L. I think that's the 30LA version of the reel, but they're all basically the same. They also had a level line version of this reel. The level line counter kind of thing, I guess, was the version where you had the line counter on the one side. The mechanical side of it is the same if you want to service that. And that's how it's done. Okay, I want to take a moment to thank you for watching and for making this channel what it is. I want to take a moment to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. Truly appreciate your efforts day in and day out. And I want to encourage everybody to get out on the water, make some friends, catch some fish, and have a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.